Okay, so welcome to today's session. Today is the last session of the crash course, and today we'll be covering three topics. One is the infrastructure, investment model, and this topic, the effects of liberalization on the economy, changing in industrial policy, and their effects on industrial growth. So now again, this is a topic which normally UPSC is ask questions consistently and regularly on this, and the idea is to be able to understand the issues in entirety. So the topics which are there, first is the export-led manufacturing. Now, export-led manufacturing is always in news. If you see the last few years PYQ, आपको हमेशा एक question directly, indirectly you'll get that. Then similarly we have a concept called MSME-led growth, which is again MSME are the booster for exports also. 40% of India का export MSME से आता है. MSME is medium, small, micro industries. Similarly, the global manufacturing hub, again all the three topics are interlinked. Then the startup ecosystem, well, a lot of news was there in the startup ecosystem, and you might get question again from here, the startup ecosystem. Then revamping special economic zones. Now these are important topics. Then there are topics like gig economy. Now these are these are topics that you can do on your own. Then developing a robust semiconductor ecosystem. Now India is trying a very, multiple efforts are being done. We are we are putting investing with the companies, asking them to invest here. Then FDI flow breaches $1 trillion since 2000. So last 25 years, we have crossed $1 trillion. Now, what are the themes that are mainly asked? Agro to service industries, weak industrial base, globalization, job loss, informalization, slow industrial growth, and industrial policy reforms. So let's take the first topic, export-led manufacturing. So export in India, the exports are very important because they help you to pay for the imports, the first thing. Second is India has huge potential for exports also, and in the last few years India has done exceedingly well in certain sectors like automobile, sectors like the petroleum products. We are also good in the jewelry, gems and jewelries. Also we export pharmaceutical medicines. So if India wants to become a 5 trillion economy, it is believed that manufacturing can contribute, and here we want manufacturing sector to contribute 25% of the GDP. Now, when you're looking at 25% of the GDP in manufacturing, you have to identify that export has to come, and that too through goods. Now, in service sector, India is already doing good exports, but here the goods based manufacturing has to be promoted. Now, when you look at the data, the last year the exports stood at $437 billion. It is 16% of the GDP, and the goal is to reach 25%, which is not possible, but yes. So why exports are important? Because first, exports help you to, now let's understand why exports are important. So export-led growth, that is what we are looking at. The first is it is labor intensive. That is the first thing. The second thing is that it has high employment elasticity, the same concept. Okay, export will bring forex earnings. Second is it is going to boost the domestic economy, that is growth. This sector, India can become a global manufacturing base. So export-led growth is what we require. Our economy is, and for that you need investment. For this you need investment. So export-led growth will come from investment-led growth. Currently our economy is very much consumption-led growth. So it's not that India is not putting effort, but there are a lot of schemes. Now let's see the schemes which are there, and you just have to remember PLI, Production Linked Incentive Scheme, covers 14 sectors including these sectors. Then they are doing 2 lakh crore of exports is being covered in the. Then Make in India, we are developing the domestic capability. Then promotion of capital goods, remission of duty and tax on export product. Now these are two schemes that you can add in your understanding. PM Gati Shakti is about developing infrastructure in the country, and logistics, national logistic policies to reducing the logistic cost, the movement cost in the economy. Also, we can promote free trade agreements with many countries, and that will open the market access will be given to India. So all these aspects are very important, but these are schemes also. For example, the area which can be promoted for exports are electronics, textiles, automobiles and EV sector, green growth, that is green led export, defense manufacturing and agri processing. All these are the areas where India can focus very importantly. Now you can put these data in your answers. Now what are the challenges? Now the same thing. First is India has high. Now if you see, there are factors of production, right? So factors of production: land, labor, capital. How you remembered all this? Okay, entrepreneurship. Now land acquisition is difficult in India, so manufacturing is the problem. Also in India, infrastructure is weak, so logistic cost is higher. We have limited integration with global value chain. The labor is less skilled relatively, so inadequate labor skill development. Technology adoption is still not very high. Export volatility because of the geopolitics or global factors. So you can easily link your understanding by the challenges. So we have a domestic problem within the economy, high cost of capital, labor is less skilled, land acquisition is difficult, it is costly. Then externally we have global factors which are impacting the demand for the aspect. So that is where we need to align our industrial policy with export strategy across the sector, invest in skilling, R&D and design capabilities to move ahead. So overall, also there is one area where India can definitely push is green manufacturing. Now this is one area where I do not find this point in the answers. So आप इसमें green manufacturing को add कर सकते हैं, and this green manufacturing would be very helpful. So export led growth is what we are looking at. This topic is similar to the previous one because MSME is also employment generation, and MSME focuses on export sectors. So MSME sector is a vital component. Employment generation, GDP growth, exports. There are 6.3 crore MSMEs. Now this data is important. They form backbone of the Indian economic structure, and they can help India to achieve the 5 trillion economy. MSME contribute 30% of the GDP. Now this data is again important. Contribute 48% of total exports. So MSME is, if you promote MSME sector, तो export led growth automatically India में होगा. And 11 crore people are employment generation यहाँ से होता है. It is the second largest employment generation sector after the agriculture. So that is how it can be seen, and it has to be led. So MSMEs are crucial for industrialization in rural areas, promoting balanced regional development. Now, a lot of your MSMEs are agriculture based or food processing industry. So we have to focus on the balanced regional development, and this can help us. Now, what are the initiatives? Now, remember all these initiatives you need to remember. Make a list of these pointers, and you can put in your answers. First is Udyam registration. Okay. He have more than 3 crore registration. Emergency credit line guarantee scheme. Okay. To promote collateral free credit to the MSME sector. Then Pradhan Mantri Employment Generation Program. Then RAMP, raising and accelerating MSME performance. Credit guarantee fund, यानी हम उनको लोन देंगे और क्रेडिट गारंटी देंगे for MSMEs. MSME cluster development program supports infrastructure development. Digital MSME scheme encourages digital adoption through cloud computing, AI tools and ERP solution. All the initiatives you should remember. Make a list of the initiatives, and they should be on your tips. Then access to finance and credit issues. Despite improvement, MSMEs face credit gap. आप देखो 25 trillion का credit gap है. Only 16% MSME have access to formal credit. That means more than 80% of the MSMEs do not have access to the formal credit. तो ये आप इसको easily जो है technology and market access challenges are there. तो इन pointers को आप देख सकते हैं. Labor regulatory constraints are there. Now, for example, how do MSMEs can adopt digital ecosystem, improve productivity, and industry 4.0. 4.0 is modern technologies, Internet of Things, AI, automation, all those things can be brought in. So, अगर technology को use करके you can leverage things at different level. Then labor and regulatory constraint, compliance burden from multiple laws affects MSME growth. Labor laws like new labor codes aim to simplify compliance. MSME support gender inclusive and SC/ST entrepreneurship through schemes like Stand Up and Sfurti. Now remember this scheme. Then green MSME are being promoted under the zero defect zero effect certification scheme for sustainable practices. तो ये सब words हमको use करने होंगे and this will make a huge understanding and difference. MSME are critical for achieving inclusive growth, regional equity and employment resilience. A coordinated policy thrust towards credit access, digital transformation and ease of doing will unlock the MSME sector and help India achieve the Vikshit Bharat goal. Now see the question. Industrial growth rate has lagged behind overall growth rate of domestic GDP in the post-reform period. Give reasons how for the recent change in the industrial policy are capable of increasing the industrial growth rate. ये 18 का question है. So growth rate of Indian economy is around 6 to 7% and industrial growth rate भी little पीछे है because service-led growth rate India में रहा है. Okay. So what are the reasons? The same reasons are there. High logistic cost, a poor infrastructure, a lesser technology adoption, a weak MSME sector, capital industry intensive growth, lack of labor reforms. So when you look at the understanding कि India में industrialization क्यों नहीं हुआ है, the skilling rates are still poor. We are still low skilled economy instead of medium and high skilled economy. Even though we have huge surplus population in terms of labor, but there is a deficit in the labor skills. Okay, then you have high cost of credit, land acquisition issues are there. You can list all the issues which are there. तो हमारा industrial growth जो है, also industrial growth has been very fluctuating. In the 90s, the growth Indian economy opened, but industrial growth fluctuating trend रहा है. In some phase India did well, in other phase India did not do well. मेरे class notes में सारा mentioned है. Okay. Then India as a global manufacturing hub. अब कैसे global manufacturing hub promote करेंगे? Now manufacturing contributes 17% of the GVA. Initiatives again same है, आप देखो all the same policies are there. Here you can add industrial corridors and SEZ reform. India competitive advantage क्या है? India is the third largest pool of engineers and scientists. India has low cost skilled labor, digital penetration. India में domestic consumer market अच्छा है. Strategic location and strong maritime network. And issues are same. Infrastructure bottleneck, power reliability, complex land acquisition, environmental issues है, skill mismatch है, slow integration in the global value chain. Now this you can add. इंडिया का जो डेवलपमेंट है ग्लोबल वैल्यू चेन में काफी वीक है. रेगुलेटरी कंप्लायंस इश्यूज आर देयर. नाउ दिस यू कैन ऐड इन योर आंसर्स. नाउ ये very interestingly these are extra points which you not find in other part. Sectors where India has global potential: electronics and semiconductors, where India is already putting a lot of investment. Now India exports iPhones worth $10 billion. This number has increased also. Renewable energy and green tech. India aims to become solar PV and battery storage manufacturing hub. Now this will take some years or decades, but yes, India will. Pharmaceutical, India is the largest producer of generic medicine. Defense manufacturing, India is targeting 25 billion defense production, including 5 billion in exports. Textile and technical textiles, Mitra parks are being promoted to boost exports. तो ये emerging sectors को आपने answers में डालिए, and this will add value to your answer and you will score much better. See, I'm here not to teach you, but to tell you that how you can enhance your writing skill and what value addition can be improved here. Okay. So way forward again, the same. Problem का उल्टा solution होगा. Problem का उल्टा solution, one government scheme and data. Skill development, PM कौशल विकास योजना 4.0. Poor infrastructure, opposite is PM Gati Shakti, National Infrastructure Pipeline, 111 crore lakh investment. Then land acquisition, so India is trying to streamline land laws, right? Then stable FDI के लिए predictable policy होना चाहिए. R&Ds, India में R&D investment is 0.7% of GDP, उसको बढ़ाना है तो promote R&D. So all these things are there. Normally countries shift from agriculture to industry and then later to services, but India shifted directly from agriculture to services. What are the reasons for huge growth of service sector vis-a-vis industry in the country? Can India become a developed country without strong industrial base? Okay, I hope you're getting it right. Now, the next is India's startup ecosystem. So India का third largest startup ecosystem है, over 1.161 lakh. The ecosystem has witnessed rapid expansion from 471 startup to this one. Geographic and social inclusivity. Approximately 45% of startups are located in tier 2 and tier 3 city. अभी startups के बारे में कुछ data important है. Now let's see data. Now we have how many startups? 471 startups that has been started. And one more thing, what are the policy here? Now policy here is very clear. The fund of the fund startups, Startup India Seed Fund Scheme, Credit Guarantee Scheme for startups. Now these schemes can be used in your understanding. Platform like Marg for bridging startup with experienced mentors across domain. Tools like Bhaskar are helping to create national digital registry of startups. India has 118 unicorn. Unicorn means more than $1 billion evaluation from 8 in 16. Total venture capital flows have exceeded $155 billion with Bengaluru as a hub. Then startups in agriculture, you can easily say that we have startups in agriculture, women-led, integration with platform like ONDC and eNAM. Okay. And there are challenges also. You can see regulatory bottleneck, limited access to risk capital, okay, skill mismatches, all those issues are there. Now again, this topic is important. Special economic zones. Now let's understand why this topic is important. Okay, so India का जो SEZ policy है, introduced aims to boost exports, attract investment and generate employment, and WTO issues like WTO non-compliance and weak domestic integration. So India की जो SEZ policy थी, actually it concept started in EEZ in Kandla in 1950s, and then India adopted SEZ. So SEZ are the place which are to boost exports, also promote domestic manufacturing. And यहाँ पे SEZ Act को replace, their proposal is that how do we boost the zones? अभी special economic zones को हमें boost करना है, वो कैसे होगा? And for that, now this is proposed replacement with the base bill marks a strategic shift in India's industrial policy. Now again you can give the example here. तो क्यों revamp करना है? Why? Because SEZ policy, almost 2 decades of that, it is not effective. 40% of the land in the SEZs are unused. WTO disputes under SEZ are non-compliant with global trade rules. Exports from SEZ grew only at 4.3%. Okay, lack of integration with domestic tariff area. तो SEZ को रिवैम्प करना इसलिए जरूरी है because SEZ का जो ऑब्जेक्टिव था to boost India's export or develop manufacturing base in India, that has not been very effective. तो हमारे पास जो देश बिल है, it is mainly replace SEZ with development of enterprise and service hubs. Now remember, what is the full form of this? Development of enterprise and service hub framework. All types of units for domestic and export purposes can operate within the same zone. Incentives are performance based rather than linked to the net foreign exchange earnings. Denotification process eased. Distillation and single window clearance for approvals and compliances. तो ये key provisions है देश बिल का. Promoting inclusive economic zones to promote diverse sectors including service, R&D, logistics, warehousing and tourism. New labor intensive zones are targeted to generate high employment in the semi-urban area. Policy allows mixed use development, enhanced livability and industrial productivity. तो हमारा objective inclusive economic zones में यही रहेगा, that we are going to make the special economic zones more effective by putting the effort here. Integration with domestic economy, compliance burden. अभी क्या SEZ हमारे domestic economy को बहुत benefit नहीं दे पा रहा है, and that is where integration is needed. तो इस टॉपिक को बहुत अच्छे से देख लीजिएगा. The pointers are very much there. SEZ are to be mapped under PM Gati Shakti Master Plan for Seamless Logistics and time bound approval यहाँ पे रहेगा. Also the idea is to boost the global competitiveness and value addition part. So remember यहाँ पे जो topics हैं ये directly जो है आपका question आ सकते हैं. And here for example sunset clause replaced with, तो SEZ का जो timeline खत्म होता है, suddenly you are into the like a normal law. Now here you have a sunset clause replaced with graded transparent fiscal incentive to avoid WTO scrutiny. ये भी कहा जाता है कि जो SEZ है वहां पे WTO के रूल्स फॉलो नहीं होते हैं, and thereby there is a pressure from WTO. So it is very important that we invest things accordingly. Now remember this question came. This is special acknowledgement SEZ are tool of industrial manufacturing. Recognizing this potential, the whole instrumentality of the SEZ requires augmentation. Discuss the issues plaguing the success of SEZ with respect to taxation, governing laws and administration. तो ये SEZ में 2-3 लॉ थे, DDT, dividend distribution tax and capital gains tax. तो उसमें issues थे and वहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट ने कुछ changes किए थे. Now challenges in the robust semiconductor ecosystem. Now this topic is very important because semiconductors are future and modern technologies में AI and 5G का adoption बहुत जरूरी है. High capital intensity, long gestation period, lack of technological know-how and IP ownership. Now इंडिया का जो सेमीकंडक्टर इंडस्ट्री है वो एक अभी डेवलप नहीं हो पाया है, अनलाइक व्हाट हैज हैपेंड इन यूएसए एंड अदर नेशंस, एंड देयरबाय वी नीड टू डेवलप एंड क्रिएट अ इकोसिस्टम फॉर चिप मैन्युफैक्चरिंग. और यहाँ गवर्नमेंट ने एक सेमीकॉन इंडिया प्रोग्राम, नाउ दिस डेटा इज इंपॉर्टेंट, इंडिया स्टार्टेड सेमीकॉन इंडिया प्रोग्राम which with a corpus of 76,000 crore. Setting up semiconductor fab requires investment of 8 to 10 billion dollar and 5 to 7 years of operational readiness. It's a very cost intensive project. और यहाँ पे already companies like Tata's, they have already started investing. तो lack of reason क्या है? Lack of technological know-how, IP ownership. India does not possess semiconductor manufacturing knowledge. अभी कम है. We have dependence on foreign players like Intel, Global Foundation. लो R&D इन्वेस्टमेंट. इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स में हमारा R&D काफी कम है, 0.7% ऑफ द GDP हमारा टोटल R&D है. द लैक ऑफ स्किल्ड मैन वर्क फोर्स. करंट टैलेंट पूल इज लिमिटेड टू VLSI डिजाइन, लैक्स एक्सपर्टीज इन फैब ऑपरेशंस एंड टूल मेंटेनेंस. तो इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट दैट हम इसमें इन्वेस्ट करें. एंड रिमेंबर इट्स अ नॉट वन डे प्रोसेस, इट्स अ प्रोसेस विच विल रिक्वायर more than a decade of effort. The place where China has reached, it is because of the strong government support and industrial policy जो चाइना ने दिया है. Because ये जो support है अगर वो रहेगा consistently, then only things will happen. So supply chain and raw material constraint. 80% of the semiconductor raw materials are imported. High dependence on geopolitical volatile regions like Taiwan and South Korea. तो ये इस आर्टिकल को पढ़िएगा डिटेल में कि why how we should promote it. For example, design to fabrication integration. अभी design stage पे है, eventually you have to fabricate. India has 20% of share in the chip design talent. Most companies rely on foreign fab. Inadequate linkage between chip design and the proposed foundation. Weak IP creation, export-oriented design. Semiconductor fab require 99.9% clean power and 20 million liters of ultra pure water daily. तो इसमें आपके पास limited resources हैं because water India में काफी कम है. Then SEZ related delays are there, land acquisition bottlenecks are there. पॉलिसी एंड इकोसिस्टम कोऑर्डिनेशन चैलेंजेस आर देयर. तो हमको ऑब्जेक्टिव हमारा ये कि हम इसको डेवलप करें. कंपटीशन एंड जियो कंट्रीज लाइक चिप एक्ट, EU, ये हमें काम करना है. ठीक है. FDI का फ्लो $1 ट्रिलियन ब्रीच कर गया है. ये डेटा सिर्फ आपके लिए इंपॉर्टेंट है. दैट अगेन डिकेडल ट्रेंड है, नॉट सो इंपॉर्टेंट. एंड द हाईएस्ट कॉन्ट्रीब्यूशन कमिंग फ्रॉम मॉरिशियस, सिंगापुर, USA. एंड सर्विस सेक्टर इसमें लीड करता है, $115 बिलियन. देन कंप्यूटर्स $107 बिलियन. And then manufacturing. India is fifth in the global FDI flows in 2024, improving from 16th. And अभी भी हमारा FDI को हमें liberalize करना है, and that is where the requirement is. Over 1,000 greenfield investment projects and 64% jump in the project finance deal. Greenfield investment project का मतलब new projects. When you something you start from scratch. Okay, significant improvement in ease of doing business, ranking from 142nd to 63rd. Crossing 1 trillion mark in cumulative FDI reflects India's growing stature and global investment destination. Continued reform, stable governance, and strong manufacturing and digital ecosystem are key to attracting long-term FDI and driving sustainable economic growth. So that completes the first part. Now remember, am I going fast? Amrit, Yashika, Om, clear ho raha hai, right? See, the idea is to study them, make short notes. It is not that I can teach every topic. Clear, right, beta? Any confusion? Should I move forward? Now, infrastructure mein I will not cover all topics. I'll cover only few topics. The first topic is clean energy ecosystem. Rest you can cover. Then rooftop solar and BM Gati Shakti. Now you can see here PPP infrastructure, green energy corridor, run of the river project, LED program, access to modern energy. अब इंडिया का एविएशन सेक्टर का डेटा आप पढ़ लीजिएगा. Then you have data for power sector. India's logistics sector is a crucial enabler for economic growth. इसको आप देख सकते हैं. Data is important here. अब logistics sector में why? So we have government scheme, national logistic policy. India contributes 13 to 14% of GDP contributes logistics में, but global average 8 to 9% है. Logistics means from the factory till the end user जो पूरा cost आता है उसको logistic cost बोलते हैं. As a percent of GDP reduced 7 to 8% from 8.8%. तो अभी हमें कम करना है इसको. And you have to invest in infrastructure, you have to create regulatory transformation, digital inputs, and create multimodal integrated hubs. And challenges same है, high logistic cost, poor congestion, low rail freight share, freight system बहुत develop नहीं है, end user connectivity का issue है. And you have schemes which are same, investment, PM गति शक्ति and PLI. अब देखो घूम फिर के चीजें वहीं आ जा रही हैं. One area I believe there you have to focus here is this part, sustainability and green logistics. So we are going to promote logistics in the green sector. Electric truck and LNG fleet adoption increase support of faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicles. FAME scheme. Biofuel blending are reached 10% in 2025. Railways deployed over 100 Gati Shakti cargo terminals to shift cargo from road to rail. Battery swapping and EV charging hub being integrated to the major logistic corridor. Green ports and inland waterway reduce emission in the maritime freight movement. तो ये हमें देख लेना, ये टॉपिक देख लेना. Global benchmark and export competitiveness. India's logistic performance index improved from 38 to 44. Improved to 38 from 44. Export container turnaround time जो है reduce हो गया है, under 48 hour हो गया है. Turnaround time means ship आती है, unload, load and then goes back. That is turnaround time. Special economic zones and free trade warehousing zones are there. तो ये एक एरिया जहां पे इंडिया वर्क कर सकती है. देन क्लीन एनर्जी, इसको देख लीजिएगा. अगेन द चांसेस ऑफ क्वेश्चन कमिंग हियर इज लेस बिकॉज दिस टॉपिक बहुत पुराना है, बट स्टिल जस्ट गो थ्रू इट. एटलीस्ट द मेजर गवर्नमेंट स्कीम्स कौन कौन से हैं, नेशनल ग्रीन हाइड्रोजन मिशन, उनके टारगेट्स क्या क्या हैं, ये सब थोड़ा देखना पड़ेगा, राइट. इसमें हमारे पास इन्वेस्टमेंट कितना आ रहा है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल गवर्नमेंट इज पुटिंग सॉवरेन ग्रीन बॉन्ड्स, जिससे हम मनी रेज कर पाए. चैलेंजेस क्या क्या है, लैंड एक्विजिशन, हाई इंपोर्ट डिपेंडेंस, इंटीग्रेशन ऑफ वेरिएबल आरई रिसोर्सेज. ओके, देन रूफटॉप सोलर. रूफटॉप सोलर हैज इमर्ज्ड अ स्ट्रेटेजिक कॉम्पोनेंट फॉर इंडियाज एनर्जी ट्रांजिशन. और आप देखो रूफटॉप सोलर में इसमें डेटा देख लेते हैं. तो रूफटॉप सोलर 11.5 GB, स्टेट्स कहाँ कहाँ हैं. नाउ वी हैव स्कीम लाइक PM सूर्य घर मुफ्त बिजली योजना. रूफटॉप सोलर प्रोग्राम ऑफर्स 40% सब्सिडी ऑन रेजिडेंशियल यूजर्स. एंड इसमें PM सूर्य घर योजना, अर्बन लोकल डिस्कॉम्स आर इंसेंटिवाइज्ड टू एक्सपेंड लास्ट माइल रूफटॉप डिप्लॉयमेंट. यहाँ पे कुछ डेटा इंपॉर्टेंट है. फॉर एग्जाम्पल डिस्कॉम लिंक्ड रेस्को मॉडल and third party ownership have grown in urban clusters. तो डिस्कॉम लिंक में डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन कंपनीज जो है क्या करती है, अर्बन क्लस्टर्स में रूफटॉप सोलर को प्रमोट करती है, एंड थर्ड पार्टी जो है आपको वो सारा इकोसिस्टम देती है. ग्रीन फाइनेंसिंग इज वेयर फाइनेंस इज अवेलेबल इन दिस एरिया. चैलेंजेस क्या क्या है, हाई अपफ्रंट कॉस्ट, स्टार्टिंग कॉस्ट ज्यादा होता है फॉर नॉन सब्सिडाइज यूजर. Inconsistent net metering policies and discom reluctance delay implemented. Awareness gap, lack of skilled local workforce. Roof ownership, structural integrity, shading issues. ठीक है, और ये आपके वे फॉरवर्ड है. स्ट्रीमलाइनिंग सब्सिडी डिसबर्समेंट, म्युनिसिपल बॉन्ड, इससे हम जनरेट कर पाएंगे. ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम्स लाइक सूर्य मित्र एंड स्किल इंडिया शुड एक्सपैंड. तो ये क्वेश्चन जो है यहाँ पर आप देख सकते हो. दिस टॉपिक इज अगेन इंपॉर्टेंट फ्रॉम एग्जाम पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. आज का टॉपिक में बहुत ज्यादा करने को नहीं है, because the topic is very much यहाँ से UPSC क्वेश्चन बहुत रेयरली पूछता है. वेरी फ्यू क्वेश्चंस आर बीइंग आस्क्ड, यू कैन लुक हियर आल्सो. एंड देन रोड कनेक्टिविटी, अगेन यू कैन जस्ट रीड इट, बेसिक आइडिया होना चाहिए. इन्वेस्टमेंट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर इज मोर फॉर इम्पॉर्टेंट फॉर इंक्लूसिव एंड रैपिड इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ. देन PM गति शक्ति इज अ नेशनल मास्टर प्लान. अगेन दिस ओल्ड स्कीम, नथिंग मच हियर. PM गति शक्ति एक तरह का डैशबोर्ड है which integrates all the major infrastructure schemes. इसमें क्या है, geographical information system, जिसमें over 1400 जो projects हैं उनको हम देख रहे हैं. It integrates data from central government, state government, satellite imagery and AI for route optimization. Okay, infrastructure projects above 500 crore are mandated using the गति शक्ति tool. तो जितने भी गवर्नमेंट के प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं पैन इंडिया गवर्नमेंट प्रोजेक्ट, उस पर गति शक्ति का जो इकोसिस्टम है डैशबोर्ड पे इट विल लुक कि दीज आर प्रोजेक्ट्स व्हिच आर डूइंग वेल, दीज आर प्रोजेक्ट्स जो अच्छा नहीं कर रहे हैं. इट इज इंपॉर्टेंट दैट हर प्रोजेक्ट पर हम धीरे धीरे करके वी इन्वेस्ट एंड क्रिएट द टाइम बाउंड एग्जीक्यूशन. टाइम एंड कॉस्ट ओवररन नहीं होना चाहिए. बिकॉज इंडिया में सबसे बड़ा जो चैलेंज है वो है टाइम. इट टेक्स मोर टाइम टू कंप्लीट द प्रोजेक्ट और कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट बढ़ जाता है. Empower group of secretaries ensure cross-minister coordinated monitoring. Over 1,000 central and state projects have been planned aligned with Gati Shakti. Contribution to inclusive and sustainable growth, reduce travel time, decarbonize transport. Challenges क्या क्या हैं? Data integration across departments, land acquisition, environmental clearances, limited awareness and digital capacity, timely funding and technical assistance. Okay, state must institutionalize usage of Gati Shakti in their planning and budgeting process. ठीक है, and then we have investment model. Again, this is a topic जो बहुत करने की जरूरत नहीं है. You can, this is a static topic. Now what I'll do that I'm going to give you now there are two questions I want you to solve. आप इसको लिखने की कोशिश करिए. द फर्स्ट इज रिमेंबर लैंड रिफॉर्म एंड द फर्स्ट इज इन एफआरबीएम एक्ट एंड लैंड रिफॉर्म. सो बोथ ऑफ दीज क्वेश्चन हैज टू बी कवर्ड इन अ मैटर ऑफ 20 मिनट्स. आप 20 मिनट्स में इन क्वेश्चन जो करना है. ओके, पिक योर पेन एंड पेपर एंड स्टार्ट राइटिंग. योर टाइम स्टार्ट्स नाउ. इट इज 8:24 को 8:25 इज द टाइम आई एम गोइंग टू गिव. यू कैन ऑन योर कैमराज एंड स्टार्ट राइटिंग. Okay, guys. So the time stops now. You got extra minute. Yeah. What were the reasons for introduction of FRBM Act? So FRBM Act actually came in 2003. The idea of FRBM Act was to bring fiscal discipline and reduce the deficit in the economy. So the idea of FRBM Act was to bring fiscal discipline, improve the macroeconomic management, and later on in 2013 it was reviewed by NK Singh committee, 18 rather. And what are the reasons for reduction? Rising fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit was high and the fiscal deficit actually came down. So FRBM Act was a law which mainly focused at, now यहाँ पर you need to bring word like fiscal consolidation. The idea was to bring fiscal discipline, fiscal consolidation, reduce the unsustainable public debt. The debt to GDP ratio बहुत ज़्यादा हो गया था, 82%. It came down to almost 70%, but COVID में बढ़ गया था. Then crowding out private investment. जब गवर्नमेंट ज्यादा बोरोइंग करती है तो प्राइवेट डज नॉट हैव द मनी टू यूज इन द इकोनॉमी. इन्वेस्टमेंट इंपैक्ट हो जाता है, उसको क्राउडिंग आउट ऑफ फंड्स कहते हैं. Then also the idea behind was to mandate the government of India that by law, by provision आप जो है deficit को कम करेंगे, and also adopt global best practices to align with that. For example, Maastricht Treaty in EU, Chile's structural balance rule. तो ये हमारे ऑब्जेक्टिव थे कि भी हमको डेफिसिट कम करना है एंड इकोनॉमी को सस्टेनेबल बनाना है. नाउ यू कैन सी द टारगेट ऑफ द फिस्कल डेफिसिट वाज 3%. देन रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट को धीरे धीरे जीरो कर देना है. ब्रिंग ट्रांसपेरेंसी. नाउ हियर यू हैव टू ब्रिंग 3 डॉक्यूमेंट्स: मीडियम टर्म फिस्कल पॉलिसी स्टेटमेंट, फिस्कल पॉलिसी स्ट्रेटजी स्टेटमेंट एंड मैक्रो इकोनॉमिक फ्रेमवर्क स्टेटमेंट. एस्केप क्लॉज भी हमने एनके सिंह कमिटी ने ऐड किया, दैट इंस्टेड ऑफ मीटिंग अ टारगेट यू हैव टू हैव अ फिस्कल रेंज. ओके, and you cannot meet the deficit target if there is some kind of problem like disaster, war or national security. Also there was a debt ceiling. उन्होंने कहा कि debt ceiling को bring down to 40% by 2024-25, यानी reduce the debt of central government and central state together will be 60%. Okay, एक FRBM review committee होगा, एक fiscal council बनाएंगे which is going to do that. Now when you try to context में आप देखो कि fiscal जो FRBM act है current context में, if you see the fiscal monitoring has improved. अभी कोविड में बढ़ा था, but now we have tried to reduce the deficit. By before COVID the deficit came down to 3.4%. Then deviation क्यों हुआ? Because of COVID, neglect of quality of expenditure, focus more on number than quality. कई बार डेफिसिट कम करने के लिए आप कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर कम कर देते हो, but that impacts the long term investment in the economy. So focus more on numbers than quality. Capital expenditure often cut to meet the deficit target. Off budget borrowing, use off budget financing to undermine transparency. State level fiscal deficit expected to be around 3.1%. For many states show high debt burden. ठीक है, कई स्टेट में डेट बर्डन ज्यादा है, and this is the data that we have today. Currently we have fiscal deficit कम हो गया है, and the range has to be there. So these are the ways. What is the way forward? Implement fiscal council, Fiscal Council will monitor the fiscal deficit, how the expenditure is being done, कितना आप कंट्रोल कर रहे हैं, and instead of having a fiscal deficit target, have a range. Also जो ऑफ बजट बोरोइंग है, बजट के बाहर की बोरोइंग, बाद में वो गवर्नमेंट की लाइबिलिटी होती है, उसको आप खत्म कर दो. Integrate off budget liabilities and PSC borrowing into budget document. Focus more on capital spending and outcome based budgeting. Enable state fiscal correction through reforms. So if we want, अगर हम fiscal consolidation करते हैं, if we are able to manage the debt, we are going to reduce the deficit in a sustainable manner, and that will help us to growth हमारा बढ़ जाएगा. ठीक है? So that is a very simple question that can be understood. Now coming to land reform. अभी land reform, what are the objectives of land reform? Land reform in India, how land ceiling policy can be considered as an effective reform. So land reform was implemented in the post-independence era to address the challenges of agrarian economy, and mainly because India में feudal land structure था and absentee landlordism था. So objective same है, elimination of zamindari system, redistribution of land, providing land ceiling, security of tenure, and यहाँ पे गवर्नमेंट ने बहुत सारे मेजर किए. Now when you try to look at the land reform, the first three land reform was mainly in the first phase. Last की जो land reform है, these are land reform 2.0, land record modernization, स्वामित्व स्कीम, ये हमने लास्ट क्लास में पढ़ा था. So land and effective economic reform, land ceiling was to fix the upper limit. So land ceiling में I need to put a ceiling on the land I can own, and any land above was to be declared surplus, and that will be taken by the government of India. What was the rationale? So that the inequality will come down. If I have surplus land, I will put a land ceiling and the inequality will reduce. In fact, when Indira Gandhi came back in power in 1970s, उन्होंने retrospective land ceiling law लगाया and family as a unit was used. So then you can use the same land, you can divide the land, because large landlords जो थे वो land को use नहीं करते थे. It will create employment because the land ownership will be distributed and people will have land as an asset, and that can be used. Enhance productivity, social justice and rural employment, and it can create. Also we have data. For example, Operation Barga in West Bengal helped 1.6 million sharecroppers, created investment access, legal land ownership allowed access to institutional credit, boosting rural capital formation. So these are the ways in which land reform can be seen. Positive impact क्या है? इतने लोगों को surplus land मिला, the landless poor got encouraged cooperative and collective farming, ceiling laws varied across state, benami transaction, political resistance and lack of land record clarity. The land ceiling policy was implemented accordingly. Okay, so that is the basic approach that you need to follow. Now यहाँ पर land ceiling policy was partially successful, remains a landmark intervention. Now you have to bring land reform 2.0. Land reform 2.0 is about digitalization, redistribution of land and gender sensitive ownership. Women ownership को भी हमें बढ़ाना पड़ेगा. So that completes the topic. What I will do is that इन सारे जो हमारे lectures हुए उनको consolidate करके I will create a document and I will share with you. Okay, so that is all for today. Some people are doing answer writing. Now remember, answer writing has to be done. आप share मेरे से कर सकते हो. You can share the answer writing. I got few answers from students. तो मैं give me some time because I'm busy with little main student, but I'll try to find and evaluate them eventually. Okay, so that is all for today. Now what you need to do is that PYQ based themes पे आपको last 5 year के PYQs को लिखना चाहिए and try to write them in a very structured manner. What I'll do that I'll be sharing some PYQs model answers भी आपके साथ share करूँगा, so that you have a road map कि उन answers को कैसे use करना है. Okay, चलो take care, bye bye.